What is your take on, talking about steps to get out of debt? I've heard cases where people will consolidate their debt. Say there's a company that will say, you have 3 different credit cards, 5,000, 10,000, 15. Put them all together and, let us give you money to pay off those cards. Now you only have one debt to pay.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I'll tell you, I don't really know a whole lot. I mean, the concept seems okay. It depends on, a lot of times people don't pay attention to the fine print or the details like interest rates, right? So I think that if somebody is willing to take on your debt or help you to consolidate at least the same interest rate you're paying or less, then I think that's fine. I don't see a problem with that. But sometimes these programs are predatory and they appear to help you. In the end, you still have to pay it. It's not. It might consolidate maybe it's easier logistically, but in the end, the debt is still there. You're not. There's no way to get around it. There's no way to circumvent the fact that it's your debt. And I'll say one other thing that hasn't been said yet. I don't know if you already covered this, but bankruptcy.
Okay.
Not in every case, but this is how I feel personally about bankruptcy. Again, not in every case, but for the most part, the people that get in debt because of poor decisions, right? Why is it that you made decisions to be in debt, usually because you bought stuff that you wanted to enjoy? Why is it now you are abdicating that responsibility to pay that to some program and just say, okay, I owe you money, but guess what? I ain't going to pay you because I don't have the money. So just, go away. I'm not paying you. Morally, I have a problem with that. Morally, I feel like that's just not right. That doesn't set right with me. Again, not every situation. There's maybe some circumstances where, but for the most part, when you go out and spend a lot of money on vacations and eating out and buying stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't pay this. I got to just declare bankruptcy. Well, what about all the money that you owe to these companies or people or whatever? What you use the product. Nobody ripped you off. No one held a gun to your head to buy this stuff. Now you're responsible. You should pay it. You need to pay it. Whatever it takes, pay it. So I just want to say that because sometimes people think the bankruptcy is that's the escape. That's my emergency, nuclear option backdoor. I don't think that's necessarily right.
So bankruptcy is not the back door. It's not an exit strategy.
No, I don't think so.
It's not a strategy to get out of debt.
No.
I think it goes back to what you said earlier on about the lifestyle, the habit, which is also, one can relate it with the debt consolidation. Because I have done it in the past and it was worse off.
Really?
Yes.
What way? Tell me.
Okay, so we have this, I think 3 or 4 credit cards, and they said, well, okay, there's this company, I've forgotten their name now. You receive these letters in the mail. Well, we'll give you a lower interest rate. And so for me at that time, the mindset was instead of paying 3 different or 4 different credit card companies, I would rather prefer just to make it easy and be paying just one company. But what I realized was that after I consolidate all the credit cards into one debt, at that time, I still did not have the discipline to not use
the other ones,
the other cards.
So they were 0, but now all of a sudden then they start getting.
So even though I consolidated them, I started paying one.
Yeah.
The indiscipline makes me to pick the credit card back and start swiping them. So, and that is what I've seen with a lot of people that consolidate debt, or even some people that goes into bankruptcy.
Right.
Because if you don't develop the self-discipline and the change of mindset, you will go back.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So if you would have cut those credit cards up and not used them, would that have helped, do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
At least it won't be easily
Yeah,
accessible.
right. Okay.
You know.
Yeah, you're right though. I mean, that's oftentimes like that doesn't change your mindset.
Yeah.
That just logistically just changes who you pay, how many payments you make, but it doesn't change. So, yeah, that's a good point.
So there is no easy way out, so to say.
Right.
You just have to take the sacrifice
Yeah.
and do the needful.
Right.
But it starts with the change in mindset. We are talking about credit cards. Average credit card interest rate now is very high.
Oh yeah,
20 something.
Yeah.
And see, credit cards they are fascinating because they are simultaneously one of the most useful and dangerous financial tools ever invented.
Exactly.
What will you think? What do you think is one of the biggest danger of carrying credit card balances?
The interest rate you're paying. I mean, it's like you said, it's most credit card interest rates in the high 20s, 26, 27, and that's illegal in any other area except for credit cards. That's called usury. I mean, in Tennessee, you can't charge somebody more than, I believe, 12% or 13%, something like that, 13, somewhere around there. It's right around there. Or it's considered like to make a personal loan and charge somebody, that's called usury. But credit card companies been doing it for 50 years. I mean, it's outrageous how much interest they charge, even in these low introductory 0% rates. That's for a year, but then it goes to 28, 29%. That's what the danger is that, and it's just easy. I mean, I was in Europe last October. And I was in Europe probably, I don't know, the last 3 years, 2 or 3 times, right? And the first few times I always, I either paid cash that I got euros, from, or I'd use my debit card and I have to insert it into the machine, right? And then this last time I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep it on my credit card. I'll pay it. And so you just tap it, right?
Yeah.
You don't even have to insert it. You don't slide, you just
tap.
Beep. I mean, it takes literally a second, right? Which is like, how much easier, 10 years from now, what is it going to be like? You blink your eye? I mean, what's it going to, how can it get any better than that, right? And so they just stick a machine, and you just beep, and you hear it, beep, and it's done. That's all you have to do. So it's almost like it's so easy that it's free. Then you get the bill.
There's no gap free.
And then the credit card company actually charges you to do the conversion. From dollars to euros, and so you're paying a fee. So when I looked at it, I was like, holy cow! I couldn't believe I spent that much money, because it just was so easy. And you can do it today. I mean, I don't do that. I rarely ever use a credit card. I use my debit card. And the only reason I use my debit card in Europe is because with a credit card, you can dispute the charges, right? That's money that you didn't, that's on the credit card company, right? It's being charged to them, then you got to pay it off. A debit card, that money comes out of your bank. So somebody gets your debit information, they can just start draining your bank account down to nothing. A credit card, they can, you rack up whatever. I'll just call the company and say, this isn't mine. They dispute it. I don't have to pay it. When a debit card, so anyway, that's why I used the credit card when I was in Europe. But again, when I came home, I was shocked. Like, holy cow, I can't believe how much money I spent, because I was sort of in my mind adding it up, kind of keeping track of it. But I wasn't doing the conversion, and I wasn't doing the fees because, for that the credit card company does, converting the exchange rate. So it was a lot more than I thought.
I've heard of people that will say that they use credit cards so that they can have credit score.
Yeah.
And that, well, if I've seen it in different ways, but at the end of the day, the question is, how should people use their credit cards, and also how can they avoid either late fees or balances, from their credit card? Is there a financially intelligent way to use credit cards?
Well, if you ask Dave Ramsey, he'd say absolutely not. Just don't use them at all, right? His thing is, it's like that's a misnomer. But I'd say what I do is like I use my credit card, because like Amazon, it's all tied to my credit card, not my debit. I've got a Southwest credit card, so I get points. So not that justifies anything, but like when I buy tickets on Southwest, it goes on my credit card automatically because it's in the system, right? A lot of times it is. But what I'll do is I'll look at that credit card every couple weeks, that statement, and at least every month I'll try to pay it off completely.
Every month.
Pay it off. I don't want to ever, because you can see on each statement the finance charge, right? And very few times do I ever have that, because I'll pay it off before that charge even hits my account. So, I had a medical thing done yesterday, and I put it on my credit card. It was like $200, but I'll pay that off probably this Friday, tomorrow, or Monday. By Monday, I'll pay it. Because I want to try to keep that balance at close to zero, or a few bucks or whatever, but not thousands.
Yeah.
That's where it gets kind of scary when you look at it and it's like, holy cow, it's a $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 balance. That's a lot of money.
I guess because it's so easy, like you said, you just stop and boom.
Yep.
The money is out of your account.
Yep.
And before, even though it is easy to spend, but then when you now receive the bill, so wow.
Yeah.
The bills are not easy to receive.
No.
Interesting. At what point, or is there a good debt or a bad debt? What is the difference between both?
Now, this is a matter of, I think, semantics, because it depends on who you talk to. Because some people will say, like Dave Ramsey, there is no good debt, right? Like debt is debt and it's bad, and don't sugarcoat it and don't try to work around it. Others will say, no, in order to get ahead in business and real estate and whatever, you have to use leverage. And let's just talk about some terms first of all right? Because it all is the same thing.
Yeah.
There's different fancy terms people use. People use the word leverage, and they'll say, I'm levered, or I'm going to, and all that means is debt. That just means debt. You're borrowing money. That's what leverage is. People use the term margin, right? And this is more in the finance world when it comes to like stocks and bonds and mutual margin, right? There's movies called Margin Call, Margin Call.
Calls, yeah.
There's, that's debt. It's just debt, all right? HELOC. What's a HELOC? Ooh, no one knows that. Whereas that's an acronym for Home Equity Line of Credit. That's debt, all right? So whether you call it credit card debt, student loan debt, leverage, margin, HELOC, it's all debt. It's all the same thing. Now, good debt versus bad debt. Traditionally, or what some people say is bad debt is consumer debt. Bad debt is credit card debt, is student loan debt, is making payments on consumables, right? That's consumer debt. Good debt is like your mortgage, because you're typically your house is increasing in value, right? Debt you use to buy equipment or start a business. Sometimes that's good debt, right? People say that. Using your portfolio as a using margin on. So in other words, staking your investable assets, securities as collateral to borrow against to buy more stuff, right? That's considered something considered, and that can be true, but I'd say that most people should not do that, because most people are not sophisticated enough and they're too emotionally connected to handle that kind of use of debt. It can be done, and I know people who have So here's the thing about it. Okay, here's the flip side. Here's the coin. Okay, you can accelerate tremendously your profit by using debt.
Okay.
You can accelerate tremendously going deeper in debt by using debt. You know, so you can lose it all by using leverage, or you can make 2 or 3 or 4x by using leverage. So it all depends on how you use it and the way you use it and how disciplined you are in using it. So that's more for the more sophisticated person who's an investor than it is for the average. The average person has no business. Don't even think about it. Just stay out of debt, right? But I've used leverage and margin and made a lot of money doing it. Now, was it scary? Yes. Were there times where I lost a lot? Yes. Again, it depends on who you talk to, whether it's good or bad debt. Again, and it depends on who the person is. So you talk to Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
He brags about being in $1 billion worth of debt. What does he say? Like, I've got $500 million in debt, right? But his assets are $3 billion.
Yeah.
You know, so his net worth is still way positive, right? But he's got a lot of debt, right? And he says, if I didn't use leverage, I could have never amassed the real estate empire that I have. All right, that's fair. How can you argue with that, right? Yeah. Dave Ramsey will tell you exactly the opposite. He'll say, I used leverage, and that's how I went bankrupt and lost everything. Because I was over-levered. In other words, I had too much debt on all these properties. The bank got nervous. They called my note on all these properties. I couldn't pay it. I had to declare bankruptcy. I lost every penny of it. So he had a very bad experience using leverage, and he's dead set against it. However, I don't know Dave's personal, but I would love to know if the $50 million building he built off I-65, if he paid cash for it or not. I would really love to know that. You know, I don't know. I'm not gonna judge him, but I would if I had to guess, I would doubt it. Don't you think? Yeah, I mean, you think he paid cash for it? Have you seen that building?
Yeah.
On 65, it's a complex, it's a campus.
Yeah.
He paid cash for all that? I don't know. So come on, Dave, you know, tell us about it. Maybe he did. And if he did, great for him.
Yep.
I doubt it. Personally, I doubt it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it is like what you said earlier on. Find what works for you and stick to it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about student loans.
Okay.
That's another debt that people accumulate.
Yes.
And I think the American educational system, the government, the banks, they make it so easy that even a 15, 16, 17-year-old student that does not even understand his left from his right, they can give them 30,000, 50,000 student loan.
Yep.
And you wonder to whose advantage are these credit cards? You know, the statistics is that Americans hold more than 1.7 trillion in student loan. 1.7. That is alarming.
That's crazy.
You know, so for many people, debt starts before they even begin their careers. I mean, imagine maybe someone that used student loan for their first degree, student loan to go to medical school, and by the time they are out, they will be swimming in debt.
Terrible.
You know, so as America actually sold young people a dream that became a debt trap with this student loan.
Yep.
So will you say that American have actually, the student loan is a debt trap at the end of the day?
Yes, it is, and I think it's predatory. I think you are. Well, let me say this, okay? In my industry, I have to do continued education every year. I got to get credits, CE credits, right? Yeah. And every course, every year that I take, there's several that I to choose from, but one of them every single year is about dealing with the elderly, because they're the most vulnerable part of our population that have money. Okay, I would submit to you that the college age young people are right up there. that people are ignoring. Because you're right. Most people don't, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-olds have no clue about finances, are not taught financial literacy in school, are not taught personal finance, and they're wide-eyed and they're just thinking about, oh, I got into Ole Miss. You know, it's out of state. It's $45,000 a year, but so what? I'll just, I'll pay that off when I get out. And when they get out of college and they're swimming in debt, like you said, and I've met with people, probably one of the most memorable people that situation was a person that was recently graduated from law school, was an attorney, working as an attorney, his first job as an attorney out of law school, but he had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt.
Wow.
And when we looked at what his payment, he wasn't, at his current income at the time, he wasn't going to be able to pay that off for 35 years.
35?
I said, and at the time when I met with him, I was in my late 50s. I said, you're going to be my age. Like, you're 20-something right now, but you're going to be, by the time this is out, you're going to be my age.
Wow.
Unless you get a job that pays a lot higher and pay that. I said, but my advice is to, work your way through the system, get a much, because you're a lawyer now, you got a higher, degree of being able to make more money and do that and then pay that. That's your priority number one, pay that off. But one of the things that people do, like, you went to college, right?
Yeah.
Was it in the U.S. or was it?
I did my master's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what year was that?
About 12 years ago.
Okay. So I graduated college. I'm a little bit older than you. I graduated college in 87. So I went to college in 85. And my parents didn't have any money, or they didn't have any money to give me for college, let's put it that way. And so I had to get student loans, right? Okay. And I was out of state. I was from New York, went to the University of North Carolina.
Okay.
And so I had to take out some student loans, far less than what people do today. But I remember at the time, this is what my tuition was. This is what it cost me for, to live on campus. And that's the amount of money I got for my loan. That was it. Food, any extracurricular activities. There wasn't computers at the time, so I didn't have to buy a computer, but anything ancillary, right?
Yeah.
I made that by working during college, like working a part-time job.
You were doing a part-time job?
And so I worked sometimes I was at work study, so I worked on campus. Other times during parts of my college, I worked off. I delivered pizza. I did all kinds of crazy stuff, right? To pay for food and clothes and whatever. Now, what people do, what kids do, because I know this because I have nieces and nephews have done this, and I've heard about this. Student loan companies will give you money, not just for room and board, but just to live.
Wow.
So people are taking out, let's just as an example, okay? And I'm not off by this either. This is let's say your tuition is $30,000 and room and board and is 20, right? So it's $50,000 for the year. But you can apply and get 65 or 70. They'll go for the max. Why? Because then they take that extra money and they don't work. They'll buy a computer. They'll buy new clothes. They'll eat out every day. And so they're racking up debt. Has nothing to do with their actual degree, but just to live, as if it were like a credit card. And student loan companies, they do this. They know that. But again, if the kid wants to borrow that kind of money, they'll let them, because at the end, it's they got to pay it off. Yeah. They can't get out of it. And so that's how people get in. Not only debt from college, but just far more than they even needed to have, because they use it as a lifestyle expenses, which I think is, again, that's just part of where we're at, in society. I probably would have if I could have. I didn't think you could have. Maybe you couldn't back when I was going to college, but I didn't. I just got, what's my cost of my tuition and then to live on campus, and that's what my loan was. Wow. It wasn't $10,000 extra so I can buy extra stuff, live. I just had to make that somehow.
So if there is a student or a parent watching and they want to send their kid to college or whatever, and they are considering getting a student loan,
Right.
what will be your advice on what's the best strategy for them to go about it?
So I would say it's becoming more popular, but this isn't probably what your kid's going to want to hear.
Okay.
Right. But this is what I would do is, number one, you can go to, especially in the state of Tennessee, there's the Hope Scholarship, which is a merit based on your grades, right? And that continues the first few years of college, right? It's maybe $6,500. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough, right? But you got to maintain a certain grade point average. So I would say to my son or daughter, you need to get this
Great.
get this grade, because this free money that the state's going to give us for free. Okay. You can go to community college for the first 2 years.
Okay.
Columbia State in the Nashville area or someplace like that for free. And most of those credits you can apply toward your degree. So let's say you really want to go Big Orange and go to University of Tennessee, right? Go to Columbia State or something like that for 2 years. Free. So then you only have 2 years of college instead of 4, and you're still going to get your degree that's going to say UT on it, right?
Yeah.
And no one's going to ask you, did you go all 4 years? They're just going to say, you got a 4-year degree? Yep. Where? University of Tennessee. That's all I need to know. Scholarships. There are grants. There are so many scholarships out there for ridiculous rationale, DJ. And I'm going to give you a couple that you're not going to believe, but it's out there, okay? So, because I teach personal finance, and one of the units is how to pay for college without having to get a student loan. And when you're about a junior, you should start applying for there's thousands of scholarships that are free money.
Wow.
Give you one example, okay? I'm Italian on both sides, 100% Italian on both sides. If I went to college today, I could go out and I could find every single scholarship and apply to that offer kids who are, students who are of Italian descent, whether it be my father's father, my mother's parent, whatever. If you trace your lineage, just because you're Italian, you can get free money just because you're Italian. One of my son's friends, his lineage, he was a little bit of American Indian, like Choctaw. He got a scholarship.
Wow.
Because there was a fund out there for kids that are American Indian. If you are 6'5" redhead, there's scholarships for ginger people. I'm not
Really?
lying. It's crazy. Because here's the deal. There are people that are wealthy, okay, that have no children or have no descendants, no beneficiaries, that just give their money to organizations and say, this is a scholarship fund. But I want to go to somebody who is an Italian that wants to major in computer science and go into cartooning. That's what the scholarship is for. It's crazy. Like I did this exercise with my students when I said, I want you to try to find the most outrageous scholarships that you can think of. And guess what? They're out there.
Wow.
They're out there. Now, is it going to pay for 100% of your college? Maybe not. But if I gave you $1,000,
it will do a lot.
it's free money.
Yeah.
All you had to do is write a paper or send in an application for one, and you get it, right? So there's a lot of money out there, free money out there.
So is there a resource or a website that people can actually go to?
No, not one, I wouldn't say. You just got to Google search it. Like I said, Google search, scholarships for Italian, kids who are Italian descent. And,
See it.
yeah, you'd see it. You'll see tons of them. And then each one of them is like, okay, click on that. Oh, a here's $750 to do this, that, and you apply. And that's how it works. So it's work. It's not just going to fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
But the money's out there, right? It's out there. It's like if I told you, hey, DJ, I've got a lottery ticket and it's, it's not the Powerball, 100 million, but it's, it's 50,000. It's under a rock over here in, Jim Warren Park, and I'm going to give you a map. Would you go for it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't care if it's raining, muddy, freezing, you're going to find it, right? Because it's free money. It's the same thing. with scholarships.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, getting out of debt is the first step. Is not the end in itself. It's a means to an end, right?
Right.
And when many people discover becoming debt free does not automatically make them wealthy, right? So, knowing that freedom from debt is not the finishing point, it is the starting point.
Right.
So when someone becomes debt free, what is the next? What should they do to now begin their path towards building assets and towards becoming wealthy?
Okay, and this can be, we will, in another part of our series, right, have all about investing, but I would, but what that does is it puts you in a position to do this. Let's say you, you make $120,000 a year.
Okay.
And because of your debt, you're spending $30,000 a year to pay that debt off, right? So you're used to living on $90,000. That's what you've become accustomed to because you have, changed your mindset. You're disciplined now. You're going to bear down. You're going to sacrifice and say, I'm going to live on $90,000. It sounds even funny when thinking about it because in some society that's rich in itself, right? Mm-hmm. But with us, it's probably not. But let's say, okay, I make 120, but I'm used to spending 30 on my debt. Well, now guess what? If you're used to living on 90, keep living on 90 or live on 95 or live on 100 and take that extra money that you were already taking anyway and it was going out to start putting that toward investments. Start putting that into investable assets.
Okay.
And again, it's the mindset. You're already used to spending the money. You're already used to not using it.
Yeah.
Same thing. But now you're paying yourself. That's the fun part, right? Is that before you're having to pay a credit company or paying a student loan or a mortgage or a car. Now you get to keep that money, and you're not seeing the benefit immediately, but it's still yours, and you're just investing it in something.
Interesting.
Right.
So on that note, what will you consider to be maybe one of the very first investment that every debt-free person should make?
Some sort of a brokerage account or an IRA or a SEP IRA or a Roth IRA, anything having to do with putting money that goes to work in the market, right? Now, again, some people would say real estate, right? And, that's a diversification, that's an asset class, but we're talking about being debt-free, right?
Yeah.
So unless you just say, I'm going to find a rental property or a piece of real estate and I'm going to get a mortgage to buy this. Well, guess what? You just got in debt again. You worked so hard to get out of debt and now you're back in debt by buying a piece of real estate. So it doesn't cost anything and it's not going into debt to buy, securities in the market. And
can someone just dive into this? Well, they are debt free today. They started saving money, and they say, let's say they have 3,000, 5,000 in their savings account or investment account. Can they just start, or say they want to open a brokerage account, or without investing in educating themselves about any of these things?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. But let me go back and say one thing. I mean, the first thing you should do so you don't get back into debt is have some kind of an emergency fund.
Okay.
So let's say you said, let's say you have $10,000 extra dollars. I wouldn't go ahead and invest that money. I'd put that in your savings account and don't touch it unless it's an emergency, because that's probably the reason why you got in debt in the first place is you didn't have any savings. And so you had to use a credit card when something came up. So rather than have to do that again, put the money in your account, in a bank account where you can access it freely if you need to. But be careful because, again, an emergency fund is for emergencies. New tires in your car is not an emergency, right? Buying a washing machine is not an emergency. You know those things are going to wear out, so account for it. But losing your job, that's an emergency. And having to pay for living expense, that's an emergency. But besides that, or beyond that, to invest in the market is very easy. It's so not rocket science, you know.
Okay. I guess maybe some of our subsequent session will go deeper into some of these investment strategies. Sure. I'm curious then that when we talk of wealth building, is home ownership still the best wealth building tool in America today?
That's yeah, I guess. But here's the thing about your home ownership, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say you have a $1.5 million paid off home. That's an asset, right? And that counts toward your net worth, right? So in a sense, you're a millionaire because you got you got a 1.5 million equity in your house.
Yeah.
How are you going to live off that? That's not going to pay for your lifestyle, right? When you retire, your house isn't going to pay you. It's just sitting there.
Yes.
All this equity is locked up in your house that you're not using, so it's not going to pay bills. So is it a wealth building? Yes, but you still need to have something that's liquid. All right. Real estate is not liquid asset. It's not considered a liquid asset. All right. The equity in your house is illiquid. Okay. So liquid is something you can get is you can convert into cash, like in a day, right? Yeah. Somebody, it wasn't somebody. It was Kevin O'Leary, who's on Shark Tank. Everybody knows him as Mr. Wonderful, right? I listen to him quite often. He's pretty, besides being entertaining and funny, he is pretty smart, and he says some good common sense stuff about money. One of the things he said that most people who are millionaires could not raise $1 million in 24 hours.
Wow.
It's all locked up in something that they can't get to, right? So he said the true test, or maybe that's not the way he said, but he said to really be, I forget what he used, but he said, is the ability to be able to, by 2:00 the next day, have $1 million, to raise $1 million. If you can't do that, then you may have a lot of money, but it's all tied up. It's not liquid. So on your way to wealth building, you obviously, I believe in real estate. I've got real estate assets, but you definitely want to have something you can get your hands on, that you can use, that you can live on, that you can, you can fund your lifestyle. How
many months of emergency fund should people keep?
Well, Dave Ramsey recommends, and I don't know if he got this from somewhere, he made this up, but 3 to 6 months is what he always says. He touts 3 to 6 months. Maybe because that's typically how long it's going to take to find a job if you're out of work. Maybe. I don't know why he says that, but that's what he says. And so I usually tell people that because I want to be consistent. I mean, he's a pretty smart guru when it comes to that. And again, I don't know where he got that from. I don't know if it's statistically what is where that comes from, but that's what I tell people: 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And like, if your budget is $5,000 a month, have 15 grand saved up in your savings. Don't touch it, right? Use, just in case. So
earlier on, we talked about kids 15, 16, 17, 18 years old not having financial skill, and yet these banks give them student loan. As a parent that is watching now, how can they teach their children about money in a world that is built around consumption?
Yeah.
How should parents give their children credit cards to use?
You know the answer to that. Wouldn't you love to have one when you're 16?
Well, that would be fun. So how should parents teach their children about money, and to tie it also around, what do you wish someone had taught you about money when you were 15 years old?
That's a great question. The first one is, I would highly recommend some sort of a formal program for for the kids, and it doesn't have to be like expensive. Like I got to go, you know, to a school, but just getting like a Dave Ramsey course, you know. I mean, you can almost get them free, but getting a book certainly, and it comes with a online resource, and just going through it with your kids, you know, when they're in middle school, high school, you know, whatever. I think that's imperative. I think that nowadays in the school systems, every school, in my opinion, ought to mandate personal finance for kids, you know, for students. So I think that, but the parents can do that, you know. You just have to take the time, you know. And you asked me what I wish that was. I wish that was for me. I wish people did that with me. My family did it with me, because they didn't. It wasn't even around then, right?
Yeah.
The concepts were, so it could have been. It just wasn't offered. But you know, some of the topics would be debt, investing, you know, early and often and consistent. How to manage your budget, you know. Don't spend more than you have. Don't, you know, don't get credit cards, all that kind of stuff. I wish that someone would have taught me and been an example. Yeah. You know, not just some teacher up there, but somebody who I could look toward that was actually living that lifestyle, and the result of that I could have said, wow, that's the person, that's a mentor. You know, I want to be like that person. I'm not saying that they might have been around me. I didn't know them. Okay. My parents weren't that's for sure. You know, my parents at different points of my growing up didn't have any money, made lots of money, but we never had money. I just remember, like, you know, we were always seemed to be the person we described earlier. Just whether we made a lot or a little, we never had money.
Interesting.
You know, we never had a lot of money. So,
okay. Well, as we begin to wrap up, if someone is watching right now and they feel trapped, overwhelmed by debt, and even ashamed of their financial decisions, and they are convinced that, well, they are too far behind, what would you want them to know right now?
I would say that it's never, you're never too old or too much in debt to have hope. You know, you can see progress. It might take longer, a longer time than you think, but there's always progress to be made, and there's always hope to be had. But you just have to you can't give up. You have to have the mindset that I can do this. And it's not going to be easy, but I can do it. And there's two ways to get out of debt. Okay. You know, you spend less than you make, and you make more than you spend.
Spend less than you make, and you make more than you spend.
Yeah. So in other words, you can attack it you can get a second job, third job, side hustle, make more money, and spend less. You know, that delta can come down quicker, you know. Yeah. Or if you can't, maybe you can't, you're maxed out as far as how much time you have in the day, then just really focus on your budget spending, you know, whittle it down to just the bare minimum. And have that mindset, adopt that mindset, and live that lifestyle, and just try it and watch what happens. Wow. You know, and you can have success, and you know, and you can get out of debt. So
interesting. You can get out of debt. You can
get out of debt. Trust me, you can do it. I've seen people do it. You know, and again, it's not so much. You don't have to be a millionaire or make a lot of money or have some high-paying job in order to do it. I've seen people with very little means, very average jobs, work hard and get out of debt. Yeah. And turn their whole financial situation around.
So we leave you on that note that in life you may face trials in your finances, you know, and you are in a transition period, but hope and triumph is definitely attainable. With strategies, with necessary advice, with necessary counsel, you can get out of debt. So until we see you on the next time talking about financial freedom, Stay tuned.